Got some people coming in. I'll just keep loading up these sounds while people are meandering in. How's everybody doing? How's the audio? Can you hear what you need to hear? All right, can everybody hear the audio just fine? Voice and everything else? We hearing everything? Let's go up here. Okay. Okay. Loud and clear, sounds good. Hallo Kyle, wie geht's dir? Paul, sehr gut. Und selbst? Ich habe mein Deutsch nicht vergessen. Wunderbar. Bist du noch in Fort Wayne? Paul is my little German practice partner whenever I'm back in Fort Wayne. We'd always see each other at the coffee shop that we'd go to. And he would work next door. And we knew each other for a couple years, and I had no idea that he spoke German. And he speaks way better German than I do. So he's always harassing me with correcting me and whatnot. Aber ja, ich kann Deutsch. Ich kann ein bisschen Deutsch, nicht so viel. Ich konnte niemals ein Spion sein oder so. Aber das geht. Daniel in the house. Marcus in the house. Everybody's here? Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll just wait just a little bit longer. While you're waiting, I can post this link here. If you go to the, let me just share this Dropbox link, because I think somehow if I share a YouTube link, which is where this Dropbox folder is, then Facebook, the competition alarms go off on Facebook's algorithms and it no likey. So I've updated a few things. Did I start early? No, I didn't start early. No, like maybe 2 minutes or something, but you did not miss anything. So I've just copied and pasted the sample folder that I've updated with a few things. There's a few new sample packs in there. And actually, I got one from my friend Ryuji in Japan. And I need to update that as well, if I can find it. If I can't find it, then I will update it. It doesn't seem like I can find it right now. But yeah, there is we're doing roll call. Tyler's here. Heather is here. Good work. Glad to see all of you. If you just joined, scroll up and look in the sample folder. Because I added some things in there that are gonna make it so that you can actually, I've said this before and I stand by my word. I'm a musical hack. I tried to dance around it. Let me just come out and say it. And so the reason I say that is I've been able to, you can still create melodies and you can still create musical stuff, more musical sounding stuff in Ableton while still being a musical hack. So I want everybody to understand that moving forward, that you don't need to always be able to like have everything be perfectly in order. So I'm just gonna load up a few more samples here. Yeah, let's load that one up. That one might be useful. I'm pulling every sound from the sample folder. So you can see some truncate sounds. You can see the Kowalski sounds. And the reason I'm doing all this is because I want to show you how to build a basic drum rack. It's super, super easy. All you have to do, and I left some parts blank just so I can show you how easy it is. So if you go into drums in the left-hand side of your folder, and sorry, I'm still in the habit of pointing at the screen, which does absolutely no good for all of you. Go into the drums section here in the categories, and then I'm gonna just duplicate this so you can see what it looks like when it's empty. Just take the drum rack and drag it in there. And then it goes to, you have all of these blank spots for samples, okay? So just out of because I'm a creature of habit in some ways, I would say let's find the kick drums that I want to use. So let's go to the leading. And this, I'm gonna end up deleting this, but all you have to do is just drag the sample from the sample folder. So you've got all these different places. And by the way, you can, if you have your samples saved on something, then you can't see the top part of the screen. Okay, let me fix that real quick. Thanks for the feedback. That's right. We don't need that right now. That can be like as small as possible. So, yeah. Okay, better, I hope. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm doing, still unzipping these folders within the folder. Yeah, sorry, Tyler. I thought it would just be more uniform if I kept everything zipped. And then it's like opening more than one present. It's a dream come true. Thanks to the generosity of all the producers listed in these folders. So basically, I just grab this, I just click on the sample that I created from over here. Like, for example, if I want to create, let's go up here. And then I can just drag that in there, and then I've got the folder, okay? Now I've created a duplicate, but yeah. So any folder that's on your hard drive, you can just drag it over there. It's not gonna relocate the folder, it's just gonna create a shortcut there. So now you're able to pull stuff out, and I just drag folders over there that are super useful that I'm accessing quite often when I'm producing, okay? Now so I'm in my drums, beats, loops, sound, blah, blah, blah. It's my kind of generic folder. And you just drag a sample down in there, and now you've got your first sample, okay? And as you want to, let's just do another kick there. Okay? And you just go on, and these racks are huge. And it's a crazy luxury to have. And just to put it in perspective, I heard a guy give a lecture once, and he had bought in the 80s, there was the guy that wrote, his name's Thomas Dolby, and he wrote She Blinded Me with Science. I don't know if you know this, but he had a stint in the pop music world, and he got an advance for doing a pop record, and he bought a sampler that held 16, I forget how big, but this sampler right here that my mouse is over this is significantly more powerful than what he bought. And he said, to put it in perspective, he bought a little 16-bit sampler back in the 80s, and he bought a flat in London the same year, and the sampler costs more than his flat. So we're super lucky to be working with what we've got. And yeah, so does everybody have Ableton open? And any questions? It can be the most, again, this is for beginners, and thanks for coming. I'm here to answer. The assumption is that people are beginners, so you are perfectly safe to ask any type of question that you want. So let them rip as they come along. I'll try to follow in the comments as best as possible and go from there. How's that sound? Okay, you can't hear Ableton. Can you hear it? Let's see if you can hear it now. Oh, we need to fix something. Let me have this go out to this. This should. Thanks for the heads up. Now we're in action, right? Thanks for that. We should be able to hear now, right? Is everybody's hearing it now? Okay, great. Any questions before we get started? Can be about anything. Anything. And like I said, there's no stupid questions. There's no, I guess something like, how big is yellow would be a dumb question. But as far as stuff that makes sense, then there's nothing wrong with any question that you're asking. So, anything? Should we set up our project file exactly like yours to follow along best? It might help, Tyler. I mean, this session is going to be saved, but what I would do right now is I would build a drum rack. What's the first thing to create when beginning a track? Andrew, that's really, it's a case-by-case scenario. I think sometimes when you're just getting started, the easiest thing that you can do is load up the samples into the drum rack and start playing around with it. Because for me, drums, they're like anything. You have, let me just take this down. And I want to show you what I'm using Push, but this is not, if you're wondering why it was going all crazy, it's because this sample from Dustin Zahn is actually a loop. So it's playing to whatever the endpoint I have set. So even if you want to have a loop in there, you can move in this start and end point to make it basically like a one-shot sample. And if you wanted to, you could make it a loop, and then you could hit warp, and that would sync it to the tempo of the track. Any questions about that? And loops are pretty cool for setting up a drum rack. And the reason why I say that is because you can make them a little bit more human. So right there, if you can see right here, you can move the start. I'm using Push, so you just move these arrows, and it determines the length of the sample, and basically the start and stop point of that sample. So if I wanted it to be really precise, I could zoom in as much as I wanted to. And to do that, you just click on it and then drag up or down. And that makes it smaller or bigger. So you can zoom in like that, right? But what you can also do is you can you can bring the start point a little bit out, and I kind of like that because it gives it a little bit of a human feel. It makes it a little bit imperfect. And there's things that you can do that can get really nerdy with this, but for sake of the right here and right now, then we'll just have it pertain. We'll just keep it basic. How's that? Any questions? Any questions on that? So I've got kicks here. I've got my leading kick. I've got a truncate kick. Another truncate kick. It's almost like I like truncate and leading kicks. Here's a truncate clap. It's a truncate snare drum. Here's a Dustin Zahn snare. There's a Dustin Zahn shaker. And I usually arrange, this is just, I'm not, Tyler, you're saying I'm not able to have it looping it? Which not all of the sounds are going to be loops. So basically don't look at that as I'm not looping anything either. Everything right now in the sampler is just being treated as an audio file, right? So this is already, like Dustin Zahn samples a lot of them are loops. So whenever I trigger this, it's gonna seem like it's a loop, but then it's gonna stop. You see watch the cursor there? And then stops, okay? And to make it kind of a one-shot sound, I have set the start and stop points, which are these little arrows in the sampler. Needs more cowbells? It always needs more cowbells, Basti. How you doing, Basti? I miss you. So, okay, I've got a truncate tom, a truncate percussion sound. Let's add another tom here. Let's do that. That might be useful. I'm a sucker for like the low tom sounds. Let's do one there. So yep. So we make these, I'm chopping these loops into, basically make them into one shots. Okay. This is gonna bother me on my little sampler, so I'm just gonna drag or drop something in here. Let's get a Kowalski, let's just get a Kowalski Alexander is what it's listed under. There we go. Let's do it. Yeah, that's a good one. And so if you notice, there's two different modes that you can use that for sake of this situation, the two different modes that I'm gonna work within are the classic sampler mode. That's what Ableton started out listing it as. And then there's the one shot, okay? And they're more or less the same, but if you look here when you change the mode, on the classic you have the attack, decay, sustain, release, okay? And it's really easy. If you just kind of play around with those, you'll know what they're doing, especially if it's like a long drawn out sound. And for example, I'm just gonna run this. Okay, so I've got this leading kick here going, and I've brought it in to just have it be one of those beats. The question from Daniel is, I've not used I've not used loops within the drum rack as actual loops. I've only made one shots as you are doing now. When you said you could warp and it'll sync to the temp, does that mean that it'll loop, that the loop will play at the tempo wherever the MIDI starts? I've usually relegated loops to their own channel. This is an interesting approach. Yeah, I mean, play around with it. Sometimes it does the beat grid better than it normally would. But for example, if I like brought this out, no, yeah, I mean, you can see that it's carrying out. So let's see what it does. So you can see that I've got the warp mode on and it plays basically the same. Are you tracking? Is everybody tracking with me? Everybody understanding what I'm talking about? Let me know if I'm talking gibberish. Tyler, the only way I have it looping is because basically, how can I explain this? When you have it in the sampler mode, and this is, so here's an important thing to notice. This re-trigger button, okay? And the re-trigger button means you can turn that on and off right here. The re-trigger button means that when a new note is hit on the sampler, it stops playing the old note. Does that make sense? And so every time you re-trigger, it doesn't continue playing the previous note. Are we clear on that? Also, and again, for the sake of this, just look at all of these. I just wanted to show you how you can make the loops or the samples smaller and bigger. I mean, like right here, let's look at this. Let's do the one shot here. So this little truncate snare. Actually, you know what I can do? I'm just gonna save this as, we're gonna call this Facebook Beginners April 2020. We're gonna save that, and then we're gonna show in Finder. So now we're gonna copy this, and now here's where we're gonna fall in love with technology. I'm gonna paste that into, go back to the Dropbox link, and I'm gonna post it again. And it might take a minute or something to upload that. I meant to say to upload that, but my tongue got tripped all over. So I've saved the preset for this, and it should contain all of the files. And if it doesn't, all of the files are within that Dropbox folder that you've downloaded. Okay? So it might ask you that, it might say you need to search. Somebody, when they pull it up, let me know if it shows that. It should have right on the, this is not good, I'm already losing my voice and I'm like 10 minutes in. Okay, so it should show that, let's sync it and make sure. I used to hate Dropbox, and then I realized that you could use it just as an extension of your desktop, like Finder window, and I fell in love with it. Is everybody able to find the Facebook Beginners in the Dropbox folder? Can someone give me some feedback on that? And if not, then let's do this. I can do a copy Dropbox link, and I can put this in here. Now we should be good. Is everybody able to get that? Perfect. Thanks, Heather. I'll give you guys just a second to pull it up and let me know if the samples are actually in there or if you have to kind of mess with it a little bit to get the files in there. I think you should be able just to pull it up. You should just be able to double click and it'll know that you're wanting to open it in Ableton. Just downloaded the drum rack. You just uploaded and it shows the samples loaded, but it doesn't play them. Tyler, can you look in the bottom right here? And okay, that's good to know. So you're gonna have to, let me see if I can just I'm gonna self-contain this whole session. That's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I should have, sometimes I don't have the best ideas to, let's see here. Okay. So now I'm gonna go into Ableton sessions. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna copy it. And I'm gonna drop this into Dropbox. One second. Okay, now let's see. I'm gonna post this link in here. And it'll be in the folder, but let me just do that. Now this should be what I've just copied, the link I've just posted there. Whoa, caps. You can click on and do an automatic set to search. Thank you, Zakaria. But if somebody wants to just not mess with that right now, this link, the link that I just posted in the chat, is the session that I have pulled up on my computer right now. And when someone grabs that, let me know if it should have everything set up there. And I've deleted all third-party plugins and made sure that it's just Ableton stuff. Are we good on that? Thanks again, Zakaria. Sorry, when I first saw the caps, I thought I was in trouble. As soon as somebody gives me feedback that you've been able to pull up that session, then we can get started. I'm gonna shorten this guy too. So something I can show you. So here's when I've got the decay and the sustain and everything pulled up on the Kowalski Chord 7. The file works perfect, great, makes me happy. Okay, so when I've got when you pull up the drum rack, and something you can actually do, depending on if you, just to give you another option, is you can go up into the options and you can do the third thing down in the options menu up here is computer MIDI keyboard, okay? Or you just hit M and it engages the computer MIDI keyboard. And what that does, well, you won't be able to engage with this because the keyboard is too low down. But once you do that, you've got your keyboard. I'm playing off my computer keyboard, not off not off an actual piano keyboard. That's like A, S, D, F, G, H, J, K, K, J, H, G, F, D, S, A, and that's like a C major scale. Oh, thanks for that, Daniel. You can change the octave of the computer MIDI keyboard with Z and X. Good to know. Thank you. And yeah, so it's just playing you're able to play in the upper row, like the Q, W, E, R, T, the QWERTY row is gonna be your flats or your sharps. And well, I'm sorry if I'm committing musical blasphemy. They're the black keys. So I guess it depends on what your scale is, if they're flats and sharps. But yeah, so they're the black keys. And then you have the white keys or the ASDF, okay? So yeah, and you can, now that Daniel told me, you can use Z to drop it down. Look at that. Okay. Yeah. So if you go down, if you take Z down, it moves it down like every time you hit Z, it drops it an octave, and every time you hit X, it raises it an octave. So now everybody kind of has their own little drum machine in a way. You've got your pads, which is the computer keyboard, and you're able to rock and roll. So, okay, Tyler. Yeah, you need to. The assumption kind of was that the people had the suite version, but you should be able to demo the suite version. Even if you already have a registered version, you should be able to download the demo. So try to do that, and we'll go with that. So let's start out super basic. Oh, that sounds great. Okay, so first thing I did, we've got nothing but, I've deleted everything else. Got a 2-beat loop. Let's stretch it out over 4 beats. And this is, you can kind of see like, basically when you go from 1 to 1.2, that's gonna be a beat. 1 to 1.3 is gonna be 2 beats. 1.4, 4 beats, or 3 beats. And then once you get to 2, then you're at a bar, right? So you've completed 1 bar there. Yeah, Sam, yes, this will stay up as a video afterwards. And I usually upload the completed video to YouTube as well. Some people prefer that. So I'm slowly getting smarter about how to do this. And I'm gonna have this, I record the video and then we upload it to YouTube after. We being I. So now I've got this playing. And I've got just the most basic kick drum there is, right? It's a kick drum that you all have access to. And you can just, if you want to create a note, just double click. Just double click there if you've got the arrow key, or if you want to do the pencil tool, Command B. Bleistift is the German word for pencil. And yeah, you're there. Kyle, could you please repeat how to use the keyboard as a pad? Yeah, no problem, Federico. You just go up to the options menu and then hit select, make sure there's a check mark by the computer MIDI keyboard. Did you select that? And if you didn't select that, select it. And if you're playing it and you're not getting anything from it, then that means that the keyboard is currently an octave too high. So if you look in this area, after you've selected the computer MIDI keyboard, you'll see wherever you hit, like when you hit the A key, that's gonna tell you where you're at. So right now I'm hitting, I'm hitting the A key, but I'm too high. I'm an octave or two too high to get any sounds because there's no sounds there. Okay, so if I hit Z, thanks to Daniel, then it drops me down an octave in the sampler. And then when I hit Z again, I'm at the kick drum. Are we all clear on that? And like I said in the chat, if there's more experienced producers in this chat room, then feel free to jump in and help people out and make you're not encroaching on anything by jumping in and helping out. So feel free. And a lot of times it'll keep me from overlooking things. So now we're going, and I'm just gonna start making a very, very basic beat. And I'm gonna teach you a few things along the way as we're making this. So luckily, Chris Liebing already has good kicks, so you don't really need to process. And right now, what I would suggest for all of you, if you're just getting started, start with sounds that you like already, so that you don't have to mangle them or manipulate them. That's gonna be a more advanced thing that you're gonna end up encountering later on. I'll teach you some basic sound shaping and all that, but yeah, take it in baby steps. How's the volume of the Ableton in relation to my voice? Sometimes I feel like I'm talking super loud. Does the volume need to be up or down? And I've made the push window bigger now that we're not pulling up any samples. And I can just show you what I'm doing here. And you can see what it's doing in the core. You can see what I'm doing here, but more importantly, watch what's happening here. Okay. 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 So it's all fine. Okay, sounds good. So now I've got like a super basic loop here. Now let me show you with this. So this is the Dustin Zahn shaker that I've already made into a shorter loop. What if I go to the classic mode? This would be a good one that I could show you what is happening with the release right here. You see how it's making it shorter, right? And there's a really good, if someone could just pull up maybe the Wikipedia article of ASDR, that will, well, here we go. I've got it. Copy link address. Here's a really good explanation. Praise God for Wikipedia, you know. But yeah, this is a really good explanation of what ADSR is. I think I said ASDR. Whoops. So, yeah. Now let's go on to. So right now I need to decide if I want to make a bass line or if I want to use toms. For this, let's start working. Let's just stay in the drum machine for right now. Okay. So that sound right here, the truncate percussion, it's a good sound, but it's a little bit too upfront for me. And this is gonna be the tool that you're gonna wanna learn and keep it always in your back pocket. It's gonna be your best friend, and that is the filter. Every sound has the ability to turn on and off a filter. So let's go ahead with the percussion sound right here that I made. Let's go ahead and turn on this filter. And I'm gonna turn it on to the classic mode. The little humming sound at the end right here, I was like, I wanna get rid of that. So now I can bring up the volume a little bit. Okay. So I was showing you how you can make this like looser or tighter, and I'm actually gonna move the start point here so it's got a really snappy sound right away. And is everybody tracking? Andrew. Andrew said, I notice you don't do the reverb rumble kick, but when I hear your tracks, you still always achieve that low end rumble goodness. First, thank you. I spent a lot of time getting stuff to sound right, and I will tell you a trick. I don't use that much reverb rumble stuff. That is an illusion of what you're hearing. That is not actually a reverb. And the thing is that you can create a lot of the bass sounds. That reverb sound isn't really, reverb can really dirty up the low end really fast, and it can make it super muddy. Thanks for the feedback, Heather. And so I avoid doing it. Let me see if I can I'm gonna mute this because it's not gonna work so much. I'm gonna turn off that sound right there. Well, I'll keep it. What I'm gonna do, what you can do if you wanna mute sounds is right here, there is the mute. So there's an M in solo. Solo basically it turns off all the other sounds, okay? So now we're back to a very basic loop. For the sake of this, I'm gonna delete all this so you don't get confused. So this is a very basic, it's literally a sine wave. There's nothing else to it, okay? I'm playing a chord with the sine wave there. There's nothing, it's literally, we can even turn off these two operators. Obviously, you're not gonna wanna have, you're gonna want a little bit of character to it. So let's make this a little bit. So it's really subby. And I'm not sure if it's coming out right. So now I've got this like, it's basically, let's bring this actually up to C. Okay. So the big thing with the rumbly kick when you're building like a groove with that is you want to make sure that the bass, and this is super simple bass obviously. So you're already kind of having a little bit of this rumble, but you have, the thing is once you turn on the reverb, you're kind of, there's a lot of moving parts that will keep you from having full control of the bass sound. And the thing about reverb is the magic of reverb, and I've said this before, the magic of reverb is that it's a stereo effect, and bass is gonna be processed as mono, and so you lose a lot of the magic of a reverb effect whenever if you're using a stereo reverb, it tends to sound really good when you're in a home setting, but then when you hear it on a bigger sound system, it's not making so much sense. So this is super basic. There's a sine wave and then there's noise, but let's see if there's anything else. So I've got the noise looped. Now here's a trick that I think is pretty important early on when you're working with bass and when you're working with your kick drum. Because when you're dealing with frequencies, think of it as like you've got 8 doors, let's just say 10 doors that you have people going through. And you know, if you have the 2 of the people are like really low voice people, and so they have to go through the same door. So at some point, one of those people with the low voice is gonna have to go first and the other person's gonna have to go second. Okay, because there's only one door for those 2 people with the deep voice to go through. And the thing, so you have to kind of prioritize things that are in the same frequency spectrum. And with bass and kick, if they're getting close, you need to say, okay, I'm going to prioritize the kick to punch through. And here's a way to get the kick to punch through. Let me make this smaller. My little drum machine thingy, push 2. Go to audio effects. Go to audio effects. And then down in the audio effects, you've got the compressor. It's the Ableton compressor, super simple, okay? Compression's really a science, but for this, this is probably one of the easiest things of compression that you can use or understand. So I'm gonna show you this, and this will help carve out space with the bass. Yeah. Okay. No patents here. Just sharing the knowledge. So we've got. Do you see what's happening here? It's going to be really. The threshold is when you start, like, once you move this threshold here down to where the audio is coming, that's when it starts in triggering the threshold. I mean, think about it like if you're a parent and your kid is having a good time and running around the house and he's screaming but not too loud, and then eventually the screaming gets loud enough to where you say, okay, that's enough. And that is what the threshold is. Your kid, just as your kid's voice running around the house can reach a threshold where you say, okay, that's enough, then this is what the threshold does with the compressor. When the audio hits that threshold, it says, okay, that's enough. Now what am I gonna do about it? Well, I'm gonna make the volume, actually, I'm gonna compress it, okay? So it's never gonna get louder than that. But for this, what I want you to do is, there's this little arrow thing here. Click on that arrow so that it displays the whole compression setup. And what I want you to do is click on the side chain. And something else I want you to do is you're going to go to the Facebook Beginners, April 2020. So the side chain is basically saying, I'm going to have the threshold be coming from another sound within the session. And I think it'll become clear once I show you what to do here. So click on the Facebook Beginners April 2020, because that's the first track, that's your drum rack. Click on that, and then it's going to give you way too many options, right? But what you're going to do is you're going to hit play, so you can see the options get a lot smaller, as you can tell, because then you can tell where the audio is coming from. Go ahead and select leaving my little kick post mixer. Okay? And so go there. Now you see that that's the kick drum coming through. And so that's telling the bass what to do. Okay? Watch what happens whenever we start bringing down that threshold. So now, and it becomes way more obvious if I like. So that kick drum Why is it post mixer? In this case, it doesn't really matter if you do post mixer, but it's just basically saying that because I select post mixer because I want it to be dependent on, like, if I lower so the mixer is here, and if I lower the volume here, then that's going to affect the signal going through the compressor over on this channel. But you can play around with it, and sometimes you would not want it to be post mixer, but I just selected it. So for just to show you in this matter that it doesn't matter at all, let's just do pre-effects. And I'm not gonna keep that sound. Okay, so if you turn that off, well, the thing is that you, like, if you solo that, you can hear that when the kick's coming in, it's ducking the volume of the bass sound, so that the bass isn't hitting when the kick is present. So it's kind of doing like a kind of give and take situation with this. So, and you hear that a lot with processing. So if you ever wondered where that sound comes from, then that's how it comes about. What I would do here, because this bass sound is a little bit, let's say, clean. And we're gonna just like play around with, I pulled in the saturator plugin, which kind of just scuffs things up just a little bit, okay? Any questions on that? Are we doing all right? Is everybody following? I'll go ahead and bump up the tempo a little bit. Oh, whoops. Now I've got a problem here. Whoops. Needed to turn off the warp on the kick when I bumped up the tempo. So now I think we're in a good place for moving on. Let's move on to the third channel. Any questions on the bass here? Was everybody, yeah, sorry about that, Tyler. But this will be recorded as well, and you'll be able to kind of follow along with it if you kind of fall behind because of that. Okay, were you all able to get kind of a close sound here to what you want to what this sound is here? Sorry, I'm having a brain fart. Did you use only the threshold adjuster or for sidechain compression, or did you use other options too? Piotr, I hope I'm saying your name right. Good question. I turned the ratio up to infinite because I'm not, like, I'm really wanting the sound to duck. So these ratio buttons, the ratio knob here is saying like how hard you want to compress the sound, right? And I'm gonna bring the attack down to the lowest setting, so it's like 0.01 milliseconds. And you can, the fun thing about, the nice thing about a compressor, and really the best way, like if you read about a compressor, you're gonna be like, I feel more confused than before I read it. But if you just do, like, the thing about compression is it's a very subtle thing when you're using it as, like, in most situations. And the way to understand compression to start getting a feel for what a compressor does is, okay, so turn up the ratio all the way, turn down the attack, and just set the release at like 60 milliseconds or something. And then just drop down the threshold all the way. Okay, now it's completely destroying the volume. And because the signal never gets out of that threshold, it's always compressing. Okay? Now if you start bringing it back up, now you might hear that pop. Switch it to RMS, and that pop's gonna go away. If the default is on peak, switch it to RMS, and that pop's going away. Any questions right now? Okay, so I've got the threshold down, I've got the ratio up, I've got it cranked because I want it to really duck the sound, and I don't really care about how it's gonna. RMS stands for root mean square. I'll let you read about that, but basically, like, RMS is like. Like if you have a decibel meter in the club, like RMS is saying kind of the average volume of the club. If you have peak on, it's gonna measure the loudest point of the club. So yeah, RMS is like a little bit of a smoother calculation, if I can put it in terms as best as I understand it. But yeah, read about RMS and you can go from there. And Ableton's manual, which if you ever want the manual is right here. Click on help, read live manual, and there's all kinds of stuff. Okay, sky's the limit with that. Okay, so let's unsolo this. Andrew, did that answer kind of that? I mean, this is a very, very basic. I'll spend a day on constructing bass sounds and whatnot. But the answer to your question, a lot of the time I'm not using reverb on bass. That's kind of an illusion. And I found that most of the time that reverb ends up muddying the mix more than helping it. So now let's go. I've loaded into the sampler one of Dustin Zahn's pads. Starts struggling there, but I still kind of like the sound. let's try Complex Pro. Okay. So if you double click on this, you can create a clip. And because we've got our little computer keyboard set up, I'm going to do yeah. So you got ASD, and that's going to translate to CDE, right? Yeah, there we go. So you can see where if you can just play around, and like I said, I am total musical hack, but I hit that, and so I'm gonna just draw in the note. If you wanted to play the note, then you just would hit the record there. Okay. So now you're going to really see the musical hack in me. But Ableton has a solution for everything. So if you do, let's just click here. And one thing that you can do is if you want to set when the clips, how long of advance, or like how long in advance you want things to start, then you can set it to 1 bar, 2 bars, 4 bars. So like if I set this to 8 bars and I hit play on that, let's say, so that's gonna give me 8 bars before it clicks on to the next clip. So now, there we go. So it can kind of give you lead time if you're playing and you want to record it live. So I'm going to set this back to 1 bar. No, let's do 2 bars because I'm clumsy. So we've got this. Okay. So I'm going to hit the little round circle. Okay, so the timing wasn't quite right, so I'm gonna move this, and I'm gonna move it to there, and obviously it didn't get played on time, but here's what you can do. You can highlight all this, and you can say, I want to quantize. And you can, first off, you can go to quantize settings. And this says, I want to make it in like, you basically select how accurate you want the notes to snap to. So you'll see what I'm talking about. But right there, oh, I already did it. If I quantize, I'm going to zoom in so you can see everything. 1 second. So you see how it's not perfectly lined up with the grid? So let's do quantize. and it moved it closer to the grid. I don't have it set to 100%, so it just goes halfway to the closest setting. So it still can have a little bit of a human feel. So now I'm gonna highlight all this. Oops, I've moved. And we'll go there. I'm going to bring up the volume a little bit. You're welcome, Andrew. So I keep it on the warp because this is set, I think, for 128 beats per minute. So I make sure that the warp is on. Yes, I can fold it. Good idea. Okay, so you've got C, D, and E as your notes. But I'm gonna move this. Now, here's something I want to teach you. That we're gonna insert, because the sound is really nice from Dustin, but I wanna make it a little less dry, and I wanna show you how I can do that. So I'm gonna insert a return track. Okay. You just right click, and you can insert audio track, you can insert MIDI track. We're gonna want to insert a return track, which is right here. Okay. And these tracks allow, now you notice whenever I created that, this knob here appeared on every track that I've got running, okay? And what that is, I'm gonna show you, but you can send audio. I'm basically deciding how much audio I want to send from this channel, which is the drum rack, to the return channel, okay? And right now it's just sending audio, so it's just gonna make it louder, which doesn't do me any good, right? I mean, louder is always good, but in this case, not really. So let's take the reverb. Can everybody see the reverb being dragged over? Let's drag it into here. It's a really basic reverb. What's up, Glacial Spirits? Tyler, were you able to see the piano roll a little bit better? Okay, so I've got the reverb setting is already 100% wet. Now let's just solo the drum rack, just because I'm not gonna put the reverb on the drum rack, but I'm gonna show you, this is gonna be the most drastic thing that I can show you. So. Okay, so that's what's going through the return track. But what I want to use it for is the pad that I've got from Dustin. Because I want it to be a little bit I want it to be have a little bit more body to it. My pleasure, Kim. Thanks for being here. How's everybody doing, by the way? With the Ableton stuff, with life, seems like all the numbers are really improving at a faster rate than planned with the COVID-19 stuff, so that's really a good thing. But I think we're gonna be doing this for a while, and I don't plan on stopping, so we're gonna make the best of it. Okay, so I've got reverb here, and this video, Kim, this video will be available on Facebook after the stream, so you can rewatch it, and I'll also upload it to my YouTube channel. Can somebody post a link to my YouTube channel in the comments? It's youtube.com/Kyle Geiger. I'm just working on this right now. I'm gonna bring up this volume a little bit in the mix. I'm gonna bring up the volume a little bit on the mix and tell me if it starts getting a little too much. Thank you. Thanks, Heather. Thanks, Cynthia. Cynthia, what's up? Cynthia, this is a very humbling moment, because here I am teaching software that one of the people who helped create some parts of this software is present in the room. So now I've got to be on my best behavior. Cynthia, I keep resorting to Wavetable, and thing is my computer's a little bit older, so the Wavetable doesn't have necessarily my computer in mind, a 2013 MacBook in mind when they made Wavetable. So, but it's absolutely my favorite synth on the software. So, okay. I'm actually gonna adjust these notes a little bit because I wanna make it a little bit, not fully perfect, but let's switch this also to classic. Nope. You were great. I saw you were working with your trusty 909 today. How'd that go? Come up with any magic? Cynthia is a wonderful house DJ and a wonderful person and a wonderful producer who has just really worked her ass off and really has had a good run, and she runs a record store. So definitely, Cynthia, post the link to your record store in the comments if you don't mind, so people can check it out. And it's always good to support the record stores while things aren't so easy right now. Yes, and she saved my life once. I had a really strange encounter on a flight that we were on, and I thought that this person that I didn't know really wanted to give me a ride home, and I had never met them before, and it was just that's for another time. I'll happily tell that. That's more of a Twitch story for me to tell, not in the Facebook class. So, great memes on the worst techno group too. I'm so afraid to join that. I'm so afraid to join that group. I don't know what scares me more about that group is, would I be more scared to have a meme made about me, or would I be more scared to realize that I'm not relevant or popular enough to have a meme made about me? That's the old question. So anyways, back to what we've got going here. So I've got the reverb here, and I just put it on that. The nice thing about, there's reasons for having reverb on an individual track, and there's reasons for having it on the return track. One nice thing about the reverb on the return track is you're not using as much processor power. If you put a reverb on every track instead of putting a touch of reverb from the send to the one reverb channel, you're saving a lot of processor power. When you get more technical, there's disadvantages to doing that, but if you're producing and you've got limited resources and you just want to get kind of a reverb feel while you're making the track and you've got limited processor, this is a good workaround. But there are valid reasons why to either A, not use this the same send for every track. If you like to have different reverbs, there's an advantage to using different types of reverb on each track, but that's getting really nerdy. So we don't need to do anything like that. Good to see you, Cynthia. Okay, so let's see how we can process this sound a little bit. I really like this pad. Let's see what overdrive does. Nope. There we go. Let's see if it even needs to be moved over one more. There we go. And I'm going to move it just a little bit off that grid. Just because. Maybe a little bit off that grid a little. Okay? One thing that you might want to be aware of, first off, look at this right here. I just dragged and dropped after the overdrive plugin. I dragged and dropped an EQ8. And the nice thing about the EQ8 is that it's giving you analysis of what files or what frequencies are playing. Look at this really big, this is at 40 hertz. Sounds really cool on its own, but it's gonna cause some problems because actually that happens to be right in the frequency range of, let's show where if I put an EQ just to show you the spectrum. So we're at 47 hertz right there with that kick. So we need to make some space. And what you can do, see these little settings here? Let's roll this off, and you can roll this off hard. This sets the curve. But you have this little thing that looks kind of like lowercase r. And that's what's called, it's gonna be a high pass filter setting. So let's just bring that up above. Do you notice that whenever you bring that above, you move that filter up, there's almost no difference in the sound, okay? And what I would suggest doing is bring it up until the sound actually starts to change. So there it's starting to get a little bit thin. And then once it starts to sound a little bit thin, bring it a little bit back, okay? I'm gonna set it also to this. And this is the 48 decibels per octave filter setting. And you, like I said, you can't really hear that low bass right there at the 40 hertz. So there's absolutely no advantage to having it there, but there's a lot of disadvantages to having it there. Okay, any questions? Questions? Hey Tyler, are you uninstalling and reinstalling? How's that coming along? Andrew, if you're still there, you have any questions? What's my it's getting a little bit thin face? Maybe I should rewatch all these videos once I'm done to see all the dumb things I do. Okay. So I mean, this is super basic, and you've already got like a little bit of a groove, you know? And the nice thing about this, again, I told you about the filter in the sampler. I've got this all the way rolled up, and Tyler, I can't tell you how many times in the studio that today has not been my day. So hang in there. That's something I'm really good at, is just banging your head against the desk. And you know, this is great training for life as a producer. You're just gonna have a lot of frustrating days, but I hope you figure it out. So, but Tyler, reopen the project file, and it should reopen. But yeah, hang in there. So I've got the filter on this pad, and it's on this is the low pass filter setting. The filter is like, if there's one tool that you can use that is gonna radically transform every sound and allow different sounds to kind of fit better together, it's going to be the filter. Okay? Obviously, volume's like the most important thing. It doesn't matter what the filter's doing if the volume's too high. But so what I'm gonna do while I'm jamming out on this, you see a low LFO here. And again, we're on track 3, which is the Dustin Zahn pad. And we've got the LFO, okay? Now we're gonna go to controls. And we're gonna say, okay, so we've got the LFO on. LFO means low frequency oscillator, okay? And I'm gonna demonstrate what the low frequency oscillator does when you assign it to the pitch. And it's gonna sound really weird. Don't panic, it's not gonna stay there. But I wanna just show you. And then if I, okay? That's the low frequency oscillator is modifying the pitch by 100%, okay? Doesn't sound so pleasant, right? But that's like the most obvious way I can demonstrate what a low frequency oscillator is doing. But what I want to apply it to is this filter. And what that is going to do, you can set these frequencies to the frequency in hertz, or it's locked to the tempo. So you can see what it's doing there. And I think this would be nice to switch to MS. And I bring this down, and if I apply the LFO to the filter and I set it to 8 beats, then it's gonna kind of cruise through there. And also, if you turn off the re-trigger, then the filter's gonna go independent of when the notes are hit. If you have re-trigger on, it's gonna reset every time you hit a key, okay? See how it's not doing anything there? But if I turn on off re-trigger, you can see that the filter's still working and it's cycling through the beats. But yeah, so we're gonna turn off the, okay. Any questions? Glacial Spirits, I have a question. Do you pay attention to gain staging while producing, especially with analog modeled plugins? I've been trying to keep my label at -18 decibels, but I'm not sure I hear the difference. Glacial Spirits, the thing is with gain staging is a good thing to do in practice, but digital stuff, like, as long as you're not really clipping, then I don't know. But, and also keep in mind, analog modeled plugins aren't behaving like, the inputs and outputs aren't behaving like analog stuff. So it's emulating that sound. So if you have like a SSL EQ, it's emulating the sound of an SSL console, but it's not gonna behave like the signal path isn't behaving like that. So, I mean, the most important thing, Glacial Spirits, I'm still getting used to like calling people by their username. Pay attention to these right here. As long as you're not seeing red here, and as long as you're not, okay, like if you bring that down here and then you like crank that up, then you could probably get some artifacts in there. But overall, you're not, the biggest thing with working in a digital environment is making sure you're not clipping. So just don't clip and you'll be good. And I always, before I like really start doing the mix down process, I look on the master channel and I always pay attention to this thing here, this little meter. Because if that meter gets too high, what you can do is you can highlight all the tracks and you can bring them all down together and then bring them back up. So that's something to keep in mind, okay? Okay, because like I said, not so much of a musician in the classical term sense. So what you can do, let's just do this. I'm gonna create a new channel. I'm gonna copy this, click on that patch that, or the clip that we did, and then say copy. Okay, and it's the same thing, same keyboard shortcuts. And I would really recommend learning the keyboard shortcuts, because the faster you get at working, the more likely you are to be able to like have your creativity be able to get out your idea on paper or on the live session. So keyboard shortcuts are really nice. So then we're gonna paste this same clip. So you can see it's the same color. We're gonna paste that. And the reason why, and this is super basic, so you could have just said, okay, I want E, D, C. But let's just, for sake of doing this, here's a little trick that I do with this. Now I'm gonna zoom out on this. And I'm gonna just drag these out of the grid. Let's take these all the way back here. So they're gone. Now let's take this grid back here to the 1. And someone had asked if, I think it was Tyler, he had asked if I could fold this so that he could also see this. And this is a trick that I do sometimes if I'm wanting to keep everything, if I want to be aware of what notes have been used. If you don't know scales and stuff off the top of your head, you can fold this, and now you're like, okay, on the pad sound, I've got C, D, E, right? So again, there's more things that you could use than C, D, and E together and not have any problems. But for safety's sake, this is a nice starting point. And let's just take, you know what? Let's keep working with samples so that we don't get too confused into the synthesis side of things, okay? So I'm gonna do, okay, let's see if we can work with this. So if you've got a MIDI track, which you can do Command-Shift-T, and that'll create a MIDI track right there. If you've got a MIDI track, then all you need to do, and I'll do it again to show you. So MIDI's not audio. There's audio tracks and there's MIDI tracks. But if you take an audio file and drag it into a MIDI track, it automatically knows that you're wanting to load it into a sampler. Okay? And so we've got this. Let's just see what it sounds like. It's not in tune, so that's your first problem. But I want to just keep it simple with not having to worry about tuning stuff. Let's go to Arjun's pack, which again you have. Let's do that. Oh no, we ain't doing that. Actually, let's just start with one note, and it's not sounding good. So if you highlight all this, and you go up and you hit Shift and the arrow key up, it raises the notes by an octave. So you see that it's going from C4, C3, C2. It's because I'm holding the Shift key. Oh, whoops. It's not really making sense. So I'm going to go into the transpose. So I actually pitched it up by an octave after I just moved it around on the notation. And just listen to, like, for that, it's not doing much for me. But if you just throw some reverb on it, really changes the feel. Okay? And I'm literally using, it's just the C note. And now I've got this, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe the pad's not the answer. Okay. Now we've got some options, and sometimes when I'm building up parts of a track, it's nice to just be okay with creating different parts, understanding that there are a lot of these parts that you're going to create that aren't going to work together. And so, for example, like I wanted to create kind of like a little bit of a shorter like synth hit to go with the pad, but actually it could be. It's not impossible that they go together, but if you just have one or the other, then it really changes the feel, right? Is everybody, for those who are not asleep yet or anything, is everybody following along with me okay? Does anybody have any questions or Anything. Ask me anything. So I'm gonna actually just I duplicated a clip there. So that, I really like that clap sound there, but something you can do, again, to not have it get too annoying, add that filter, go to the LFO like we talked about, go to controls. Let's bring it up. I'm gonna offset it a little bit. Turn off the re-trigger. Yeah, Tyler, I think I'll upload this session to get you all to play around with. Julia, I don't know where you're from, so I don't know if it's Julia or Julia or Julia, but yes, you're very welcome. This will be available once the session is done. I'll upload it to YouTube, and yeah, it'll all be there. So you'll always, and I'm gonna upload the session. Actually, before we leave, remind me, and I'll just self-contain it and load it into Dropbox again. Okay. Heather, still there and awake. Operator, simpler, sampler. What's the difference? Okay, real basic. Simpler. Actually, simpler and sampler, if you, I could be wrong on this, but simpler and sampler have become kind of merged into the same thing. So let me just make double sure so I'm not talking crazy. Yeah, so sampler is there. And I think if you load, so sampler, yeah, now I remember. Sampler was used, the first sampler that Ableton, simpler and sampler are both samplers. So you put sounds in them and then you can assign them to something. Sampler was the kind of new and improved version of simpler. It had more capabilities than simpler did. But then when Ableton created Push, which is this, I'll show you, I'll make it bigger. When Ableton created Push, they ended up having, they ended up changing simpler and improving simpler. And simpler is what tends to be the weapon of choice for Push 2 and the drum racks. So when you drag, let me make sure, but I think that when you drag a sample into a MIDI track, it's gonna default to opening simpler. Yep. So sampler is the older version. It was the second version, but now they've improved the original version, the original simpler, and yeah. But they're both samplers. Operator is a synthesizer, meaning that instead of playing samples like all of like here on these pads. So I'm playing these pads, and this is a pre-recorded audio sample, okay? Pretty simple. But this is a synthesizer. So it's creating tones from nothing. And you're able to, basically people, when you get these sample packs, their origins were started by synthesizing things. So if you load up the most basic thing in a synthesizer, an operator's really good for understanding the basics of synthesis. The most basic thing in a synthesizer is these little guys called oscillators. So right now I've got one oscillator playing, and it's playing a sine wave. If you remember your old geometry class, this is where it's your time to shine if you can remember that stuff. So literally it's a sound that's just a sine wave. Just sounds like a tone. But if you start adding things, then even though you're adding two of the exact same tones, it changes the sound over the top of each other. Now, if you start to offset them, or if you change it from, instead of a sine wave to a triangle wave, you can change the pitch of it. You can do everything. So yeah, you're basically creating sounds from nothing with your synthesizer. So there's basically samplers and synthesizers are going to be your two main, in electronic music, those are going to be your two main ways of music creation. Am I forgetting anything else? No. So yeah, I'm not going to use that, but I was just kind of demonstrating what a basic synthesizer is doing. Oh yeah, but if you don't want to create your own sounds, which can be a pretty involved process, they have what's called presets. And if you click on this little wheel here, you're going to see that it's pulling up all these different things, and you have all these different categories. So if I pull up let's see what this sounds like. Whoops. Now let's see what, okay. And these are sounds that have already been created, or synthesizer, they call them patches, that have already been created by different people within, or people that are partnered with Ableton. And so then you kind of can see, and you can load up the presets, and you can kind of see what changes when the sound, like, just look at the different presets and study what's happening with those, and play around with the knob. Say, okay, here's the organ 5 slow decay. What happens if I turn down this transpose? Okay, so it makes it high pitched. What happens if I take this and I turn this to high? And what happens if I turn okay. So now I turned, just look at everything in terms of knobs right now. And again, you cannot break things in software, so don't worry about it. But think about this. This is by turning just a couple knobs. I went from, now let's pull up the original of this preset. So I went from this to that. And the only thing I changed was this knob, and I changed it from high to low, okay? Or low to high. And that changed everything. And yeah, I assigned it to different things. So I did change a couple parameters, but yeah, just play around with it and see what happens when you're using it. I don't know if that was like a really long, explanation of it, but yeah. Okay. You are welcome from Berlin, Julia Malta. Jermaine Robinson, are you doing this again? I hopped on late. I'm a beginner in every sense of the word as it pertains to music production, 10-year DJ vet. Oh. Hey, Jermaine, all this stuff is going to be pre-recorded. It's recorded, and it's going to be uploaded to YouTube. So there's no problem there. And yeah, it's great to have you. Never too late to get started. And yeah, we've got some beginners in here. So yeah, let me know if there's any other questions. Robert, you already answered my question, or Jermaine, replying to Jermaine. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Robert. Okay, so let's go back and let's work just a little bit more. Also, one thing that I want to tell all of you is I'm going to structure, I finally have figured out after a few weeks of doing this how I want the structure to be. And Facebook Live is going to be more workshops, like we're going to try to get really technical and do some beginners classes, do some intermediate stuff. And Twitch, which I feel like the 16-year-old video gamer being on there, but I absolutely love this because Twitch, picture Facebook Live as a university lecture or a school lecture. And then picture Twitch as running into your professor from that university, kind of tipsy at a weird karaoke bar. Like, Twitch is like a great place just to kind of just to be distracted and just to be present with each other and interact with each other and get distracted together. So like, I'm always working on music when I'm on Twitch, but it's very, very informal. Sometimes it's ridiculous. Sometimes like, I'm sure on the weekend, one of the weekend nights, you can see the schedule. And actually for anybody that's an early bird, I will be on Twitch tomorrow. Can someone put the link to my Twitch page in the comments there? And you can sign up there and it'll notify you, I think. But I'm going on Twitch tomorrow at 7 a.m. to try to reach people both if the people on the West Coast in the US, it'll be 10 at night there. And people that are like, someone started following me from New Zealand. And I think that would still, I think it would be like 7 p.m. or somewhere in that. I'm not sure on the time zones there, but it'll reach people outside of Europe. But feel free to join for breakfast tomorrow morning. And yeah, we'll work on this a little bit longer and then I'll upload it and we'll go from there. Ask any questions that you have. Something else you can do is so I've adjusted the velocity on this. Let's just consolidate or crop clips. So now I've got it just here. If you notice here, this little guy down here, this changes the velocity. And generally, velocity is associated with volume. So if you're in this sampler and you've got the velocity here, it's the velocity volume here. So I want to show you that I'm going to set this velocity really low, and this note disappears when I set it really low. But let's bring it back up. Okay, so now I'm going to make this disappear because I've got the velocity so low. But if I bring down the velocity down to 0, that means that no matter what velocity I hit that note at, it's always going to be the same. But if I make it super drastic, then that note becomes even less present. So it's basically, in this case, with the volume, if I have the velocity assigned to the volume and just the volume, it's going to basically be how hard I'm striking a key on that. So, and the velocity of something really, this is super simple. It changes everything. Let me bring in this groove. So yeah, you can really manipulate things. Okay, but I can also do this. I can say, okay, I want this to affect, I want the velocity to affect the filter. So I've got the velocity over here, and if I turn that up, let's bring it down a little bit. Can you see, can you hear the difference? That's what I have if the velocity is all the way down, but yeah. So you can assign the velocity to a lot of different things, and it can make a big impact on the variation of the sound. And what you can do, if you the lazy approach to this is you can have a velocity plugin, and this is a MIDI effect. So if you go to add some random and you put it before that, it's just randomizing that. And so you can decide how much you want it to be random. And yeah, so if you make it really, it's gonna be kind of nonsensical, but if you have it just be like a little bit random there, and you can set the output, how the maximum velocity you want it to be, and what the lowest velocity it can be. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do. But I think I'm gonna turn off this these E notes. I don't like them. I'm gonna put a little bit of echo on this. Actually, I'm gonna put we're gonna create another return track. And we're gonna do, let's do just a simple delay, and we're gonna drag it on there. The key is turn it all the way wet when it's in the return track. So now we've got two options of what to send audio through. So if I want to add delay, okay. Okay. Sam, it's not a launch pad, it's a Push 2, and I use it to whenever I'm creating stuff, I use it for that, but I'm not using it so much as I'm kind of walking through and explaining stuff, so I'm not implementing it, but I just wanted to, if I did pull it up, I wanted people to be able to see what I was doing. So, okay, this is a good pausing point. What questions, does anybody have any questions about, is anybody completely lost? Did I just shoot way over your heads? Did people, scale of 1 to 10, how much are you grasping of what I'm doing? Give me some feedback here. Feedback is always valuable. Let's save live set. Let's save live set as, yeah, okay. Cancel. 5. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. And considering your problems that you had, Tyler, that's pretty good. So 6, okay. Kyle, what's your 7? All right, we're getting there. Kyle, can you explain the options on delay quickly, left, right, etc.? Yeah, I sure can. So let me just pull up this. Let's actually just have the delay on. And what you can do, so it's just creating different rhythms. So this is like 3/16 notes. This is 2/16 notes. 1/16, 4/16. Okay. This kind of offsets the delay from the grid, which I always like to do a little bit just to make it feel a little bit loose. This decides what part of the frequency spectrum you want. Okay, that's good feedback, really good feedback. Tyler, Federico, Heather, Mervin, thanks a lot for the feedback. Piotr, am I saying that right or am I butchering it? I hope I'm saying it right. So yeah, that's what delay's doing. If you want to set this is setting it to milliseconds, so it's not on beat. But to get some instant results, it's kind of nice to have it set to this. Welcome. Oh, playing with Ableton on the clock. Jermaine, what are you doing for work? You've been having issues warping? It's not off topic. It's more, it's not off topic. It's just more that's gonna be more advanced or for DJing. And you can DJ in Ableton, obviously. I haven't ever done it live. I've made some mix compilations in Ableton, but yeah. So you maybe send me a message on what your warping questions are, and then I can maybe address that in a later session. So yeah. Kansas City, man. I had I forget which barbecue place. It's like Joe's. It's in a gas station. Such good barbecue. Oh my God. But anyways, don't distract me with my food talk. All right. Any other questions? Working for Garmin headquarters, marketing. Nice. I'm glad things are still going all right for you. Joe's, yeah, that's what's up. It's really, really good. I'm gonna take that random down a little bit. I don't want to go too much more into detail right now because I feel like there's a lot to digest and kind of play around with. So what I'm gonna do before I stop is I'm gonna do a save live set, and I'm gonna copy this over to, let me see what we've got. I'm gonna do this. We've been going for 2 hours. And let me just paste this to the Dropbox, and I'm gonna put it in there and make sure before we part ways, I'm gonna make sure that you all can have access to this. Older father, or do you want to merge or replace it? I want to replace it. Okay. There should be on the Dropbox folder. If you pull that back up, can somebody pull up the Dropbox info, or you can go to my YouTube about section. I don't have the link nearby, and I don't know if you create a new link if it'll mess everything up. So let me just put it on here. And so let me know if you can pull up this Dropbox folder, and it should have the session that I just saved. It's got all the files in it, and I want to make sure that you can pull it up and it's sounding exactly like what's it should be that the file was, it'll show that the newest file, the AOLS file is what you're looking for. And that should have been created today at 10:13 p.m. And if that's the case, then we're in good shape. Any questions? Any questions? Any concerns for the people that were like 5 or 6? What are some things that you didn't quite understand? Stuff like that. Questions? And for those of you who have just joined or come in late, that Dropbox folder is tons of stuff that's going to be super useful. There's certain things that I didn't even go into explaining because I thought it would be too much, but there's lots of samples in there, and I showed you how to do sampler and all that. So you should be able to get started on that, and I hope that you'll just play around with it. Again, open it up and you can save the file as. Once you download that folder, save the file as a new version. You know, if this session / Jermaine edit or Piotr or Heather edit, do this so you can see what your own work is and what was already there, and you can compare and you can kind of measure how you're progressing with all of this. So any questions? Anybody up tomorrow morning with, I'll share the Twitch TV link. Like I said, the Twitch is a lot more random and just kind of a fun time to hang out and all that. I've really started liking Twitch, so join the party. Sometimes we get the beers out and whatnot, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun with all of you, and this has been incredible. So I'm super happy that people are discovering production and making music. And like I said, I don't see why I wouldn't be able to keep this going. As long as there's interest, I plan to keep going for as long as I can. Philosophy on using session versus arrangement view. Honestly, Glacial Spirits, I kind of started out I was a DJ before I was a producer, and I could never understand production. And like my friend showed me an MPC 2000, and I worked with Reason. And I could make loops, but I could never get beyond that. And so I started out working in session view with a MIDI controller and I would just create a bunch of different clips and loops, and then I would just jam those loops out. And it was the first time ever that I was like, oh my gosh, like you can kind of produce in the same way that you're DJing, like you're bringing in new tracks and you're basically, instead of mixing full tracks, you're mixing parts of tracks. And it was the first time that production had ever made sense for me as to creating a track out of little parts. And so that's actually how I got started in session view. I would hit record and I would trigger clips, and then I would go into arrangement view and edit them. And then, yeah, I don't necessarily create tracks that way, but I always just out of habit create the first part of the track in session view instead of arrangement view, but you can start out directly in arrangement view if you wanted to. So yeah, Mervin, it's my pleasure. Welcome, Daniel. Piotr, very welcome. Any questions before we go? And I might go over to Twitch for a little bit and just hang out while I'm making music and all that. So feel free to head over there and be kind of the after party. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing everybody's results. Maybe we can figure out a way to share your progress in the next beginner session. So Ozzy's sleeping in the other room. So yeah, I can't always. At some point, he's such a cute dog. You got to make sure that he still gets to. He's not made into one of those poor little like toddlers and tiaras thing, or tiara. I forget what that show was, but yeah, still got to let him be a dog. And dogs, turns out, like to sleep a lot. So he's in the other room. And yeah, I'm gonna head over to Twitch just for a little bit and pop on there. So again, Twitch TV/Kyle Geiger, and you can follow. And I'll be hanging out there, just kind of working on music. I'll probably pull up a different session and start working on it. So yeah, you've been great. If there's no other questions, I am signing off. Thanks for joining. See you next time, and we'll continue this hopefully the same Tuesday night, and that'll be the beginners class, and then we'll go on. You feel free to join on the intermediate class. You might be able to pick up some things. It's not like not everything will be over your head. So let's keep going, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Yo.